Welcome back to All That Matters Online. We're going to move into esports this afternoon, an industry that was already experiencing massive growth pre-COVID, but that growth has obviously continued through the last 9 months. We're extremely lucky to be joined by one of the best known names in the global esports business, Chester King. He's had a very illustrious and very varied career over the last 27 years in marketing and sport, and he got into esports in 2015. He's worked at Wembley and Lords. In 2016, he founded the British Esports Association, and he's also a member of the All England Tennis Club for Wimbledon. In 2019, he created the London Royal Ravens, which is the UK's Call of Duty League franchise. He's also been appointed to the IOC Esports and Gaming Liaison Group, and he was appointed a member of the Global Esports Federation in December, of which he chairs the Education, Culture and Wellness Commission and sits on the membership and technical commissions with Tencent. Chester also has an amazing excuse. For 1 year he was going to come to All That Matters but couldn't because he was acting in Kingsman, and it was actually the global premiere. So Chester, welcome to All That Matters. I'm delighted we could finally get you here, albeit online. What do you tell your family you do for a living?
Hi, Jasper. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, so I actually work in a family business, and most of the stuff in esports is done on a voluntary basis. Actually, we build and construct and run hospitals for government. So yeah, they understand what I'm doing. I actually got into esports through my son, who's 20 now. So as a parent, I was watching his career in esports. He's kind of a good amateur gaming. But yeah, I've grown up with it, so they understand it. But yeah, it's been really exciting. And my uncle actually was a double Olympian. So we've always been around sport, and then esports is just an extension of that. So it's actually harder to explain to people who aren't my family what I actually do. So.
Okay, so what do you explain to people who aren't your family what you do for them? Because it's pretty varied.
It is. I'm very rewarded about the creative stuff that I do. My diary is all over the place. I get to travel a lot. But what I picked up on very early on was about esports and about the benefits for it, and that's why I'm very honoured to be involved in the Culture, Wellness and Education Commission around esports. And I think once people break down that, for a lot of people that maybe can't emotionally or physically play sports, esports as an activity is so good at, so inclusive and brings so many people together. And last year we helped the Royal Air Force set up their esports and gaming division. And one of the main reasons they set that up was to help combat loneliness. And this is an advancement technology has really helped. And, I'm sure we'll talk about what's been happening during COVID. But for a lot of people who are isolated, and want to be competitive, want to be social, esports is fantastic. So over the next few years, there's going to be a lot of research coming out about the benefits in moderation and part of your balanced life of esports, and that was something that really intrigued me with my medical background.
So you're a member of the British Esports Federation, the IOC, and the Global Esports Federation. Let's start with the British Esports Federation. You set that up. What's the main objective there? What are some of your achievements?
Yeah, so basically in 2015, I went to the British government to say, look, why isn't there a national body? And just to clarify, we're not a governing body. We use the term a national body. The Global Esports Federation talks about being a convening body. So the publishers who do a brilliant job, they are, in my opinion, the governing bodies. But what was happening is no one was corralling and giving advice to parents, what's a good game for kids, or what does this game do, or how can we create a structure? So we kind of very much position ourselves as kind of like an amateur sporting body, where we got a whole load of people together and said, look, this is a fantastic activity. And initially we had a bit of resistance from people who are involved in sport, thinking that it would, conflict with them. But once they understand that actually it's passive media is the thing that suffers at the hand of esports, and some people describe esports as an active media. So this is, people are learning, and the whole benefit of esports is it's games of skill, always human versus human, this interaction. Once people understand that, do I want my children at night to watch, rubbish TV or be on social media or play esports? Obviously esports, as I said, there's a whole lot of research coming out. So what happened with the British government is I went quite early. There's a minister who actually is on our board now called Ed Vasey, or Lord Vasey, as he's just got a knighthood peerage, sorry. He was quite early on and said, look, this is a fantastic activity. Why don't you come to the Rio Olympics? So we went to the Rio Olympics. We did a 2-day esports event in British House. We were a bit early. Most people didn't understand what was going on. But they were very intrigued, and I'm very lucky that the British government from day one understood that this was about people interaction, not just about making money from a new kind of creative industry point of view. So I found British esports purely to help educate parents and teachers about the benefits of esports in moderation. But more importantly, I was a bit fed up that there weren't any British heroes, there weren't any British superstars in esports. All these other countries were doing better. And coming from my sporting background, I was like, well, where is like the Andy Murray of esports, or where is the David Beckham of esports? And there weren't any. We had one guy who's actually on our board called Ryan Hart, who's a Street Fighter and Smash player, and he's a legend in his own rights. He's won more esports titles than anyone else, but people didn't know who he was. And I think he's got a number of Guinness Book of Records awards for doing that as well. So for me, I wanted to showcase and create some heroes. And if you look what a great job British cycling has done over the years, they had Chris Boardman winning in the Olympics, and then they built a strategy. So for me, coming from a sport background and seeing the benefits, I wanted to create a structure at British esports. So we've got 10 full-time paid staff. We've got an advisory board of 14. I've got 42 game advisors for every single esport, and I've got 600 volunteers. So it's very much, if you didn't know what activity we're doing, it's like a classic amateur sports association that's promoting its activity at a national level. So we have high school tournaments, and we help at primary school as well.
Fantastic. And I know that education is something that's extremely close to your heart. And we'll come on to that maybe with the Global Esports Federation, but also nestled in there is the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. How seriously are they taking esports?
Yeah, so in July 2018, they held this forum of esports and sports people, and it was really interesting. They gathered, we all went to Lausanne, and everyone in sport, give or take, knows each other, but everyone in esports doesn't physically know each other, because if you think about it, it's entertainment. They're IP rights holders, so it's a bit like trying to get in a room, Apple, Google, Microsoft. There potentially is a bit of tension there. So the IOC found that intriguing, that the esports people weren't collaborative, because obviously we're all, each esport publisher is trying to promote, quite rightly, their own IP and commercialize that. So that happened in July 2018, and on the back of that, they created the Esports and Gaming Liaison Group. There was 40 of us selected, 20 from sport and 20 from esports, and we had our first meeting in June 2019 at E3, which is a big show in LA. And the purpose of that was actually, how can we share values? What can we learn from each other as an industry? They acknowledged esports at that point. Let's not have a discussion about, is esports a sport? And that could take up hours. Should esports in the Olympics? That wasn't really a discussion either. It was more about, look, we've got individuals competing in certain activity. How can we share best practice? The elite players have pretty similar attitudes. They're pretty strong on their training regimes. The good thing for me, the pro gamers, do reinforce health, nutrition, and everything. So it was really, I think, a learning curve. And then what happened, there was a meeting in November last year where President Back came in, and he said this comment that, look, every sport should have a gaming strategy. And that really was really interesting, that it was coming from the IOC. And there's their famous quote, if you go to their building, or I think it's outside the president's office, is change or be changed. And I think for them, they realized that there's certain video games that obviously complement sports. So FIFA has done a fantastic job for football, especially in America. I think there are a lot of people, generally now understand the offside rule because of that, and it's promoted their famous characters. I think the problem is certain sports want to have video games, but the virtual version sometimes can be challenging. I think sports like cycling, golf, rowing, running, and football obviously have done well. So what's been interesting for us in the UK is we're working with Table Tennis England, with basketball, so British basketball, and they're trying to say, look, how can we learn skills from esports? How can we interact with our clients or members at the moment? So I think the IOC's view is to say, look, don't be frightened of esports, engage with esports or understand esports. But I think where they've realized is it appropriate for a national or an international federation to do a League of Legends tournament? Where's the relevance with that with the sports? And they've kind of backed down on doing that. But for me, we held in February in London in the Copper Box, which was an Olympic Park venue, London Olympics venue. We held a 2-day esports tournament as part of the Call of Duty League. It was the London Home Series. Fans are coming in at 10 in the morning and then leaving at 10 at night for 2 days in a row. It's pretty incredible, the passion and there. So we were saying, right, when we do the next one, it'd be great to have table tennis tables or have some indoor bikes there. We should be working together, promoting the values of exercise and sport with esports. Obviously the fans are there to see the live action, but if you're there for 12 hours, you shouldn't be sitting, no one should be sitting in any seat for 12 hours. So we're really about promoting health. And I think what's incredible is you've got a few characters, and I think Dr. Melita Moores might be on one of your panels, but she's part of the Global Esports Federation, and she's a doctor, a physician of a physical sport and the esports team of the Washington NBA team. So it's all about collaboration and convening. So the IOC, I think, have got a good watching brief, and they've just helped bring people together. But in the short term, will esports be a medal event, which is what everyone asks me. Personally, I think sport is sport and esports is esports. But I think you will see, as I say, things like Swift, which is your cycling indoors. That's a virtual sport to me. So this use of technology, and especially during COVID when you can't go out, has just been really amplified and fantastic. So in a long answer short, I think the IOC have done a great job or started the conversation. And now what's happened is things have progressed where you've got the Global Esports Federation that kind of are working closely with the IOC to kind of act as in between sport and esports and the publishers.
We have, you mentioned Melita Moore. She's speaking on Friday morning, Singapore time, about gamers as athletes. And that's going to be a fascinating conversation. I know that's something that's quite close to your heart as well. I mean, it's interesting you talk about the accessibility of esports. I had a great chat with Zach Brown from McLaren, and McLaren have had to adapt through COVID as a F1 team, and he talked about the accessibility of F1. Now, normally you need a car to be a driver, but all of a sudden, esports is allowing kids to have a steering wheel in their hands without needing a car. It's a bit like jumpers for goalposts and playing football. Let's talk about your role within the Global Esports Federation. We have quite a few joining us this week from Global Esports Federation. But I mentioned earlier that your role is as the chair of the Education, Culture and Wellness Commission, and this idea of gamers as athletes, and this misconception perhaps that gamers are all 16-year-old boys jacked up on Red Bull in their bedrooms at 4 o'clock in the morning. This is something that's very, very close to your heart, right? That the gamers are athletes, but they need to go through similar training regimes and mental health and wellness programs. So a little bit on that, please, because it's fascinating what you're doing with the Global Esports Federation.
Yeah, so look, as an amateur activity, in our view, it's a game, right? So you're having fun, you're playing with some friends, but when you become a professional, in my opinion, you are an athlete. And I think like any athlete, you've got to, practice your activity, but also you've got to be physically fit and mentally fit, and that can range from just eye health or your core or how you're feeling. And some of these, let's say there's around 40 different esports that are recognized globally. Some matches can last 5 minutes, some matches can last 3 hours, right? So the shorter games, you've got to be incredibly focused, and your dexterity has got to be incredible, and you've got to be adapting your core. When you're playing some of the big tournaments, 5 versus 5, I know that I think there was a game called Apex Legends that came out last year. The first final that they ever organized, and it was a brilliant event, there was like 50 teams, I think it was 3, lasted 7 hours. Right, so you've got to be prepared, because unfortunately no one quite won. So that it kept on going and going and going and going. It took 7 hours, right? So I think once people understand, the concentration that you need and say the dexterity, these have to be conditioned as peak athletes. So we're making sure that from an early age, people understand, muscle memory on using either a keyboard or a mouse or a console or a mobile. But they've got to have a balanced view. They've got to be understanding about what food is good for you, that sleep is incredibly important for you. A lot of pro athletes, what do they, pro physical athletes are gaming in their spare time, right? So what are pro gamers doing in their spare time, right? So it's a complete reverse, I think. So a lot of them play sport or exercise, or funny enough, a lot of play piano because it's very good for their, their hand and dexterity. So it's about promoting at an early age to these kids. And I think what's good for me is that the pro players all advocate going to the gym, and they promote online. I've just gone to the gym each day, or I've had a nutritionist. So that kids realize, or youth realize, that actually you need to have a break. You need to concentrate on something else. So we're just about trying to educate people in the best way about this balanced life. And I think what's happened, and the acceptance more of sport about esports, is we're not promoting, don't do sport. We're saying, actually, if you are physically fitter, you will be a better gamer, which on one level, could be not the right message. We always say, in our world, playing esports is better for you than not playing esports. So you could replace esports with a few things, but it's just, the mental health. And I think, as I say, for a lot of people that physically or emotionally can't play sport, or people who are injured, esports is an incredible way of being social. And during lockdown, I've got a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 3-year-old. My 20-year-old, who's a gamer, had an incredible time. Right, he was gaming with his mates. There was a great challenge in a game called Modern Warfare that he achieved. My 17-year-old daughter, who's a sports person, really suffered. She didn't see her friends. She couldn't be competitive. She couldn't be social. And we started introducing the gaming model, and that, to be fair, is a huge problem for us as an industry, is the fact of the diversity mix. More in the UK, more boys play esports and more girls play video games. And what we're trying to do is get more girls playing games of skill as opposed to games of chance. So we're going younger on that. So as I say, the Global Esports Federation has only been going since December. We're very lucky that Tencent is our partner. We've got over 70 volunteers. Dr. Melita Moore is just is a wonderful giving person. We've got the head of education for Twitch. We've got some serious people. I'm sure the other people will talk about that. But yeah, I'm very lucky. And one of the projects we're studying is about dementia prevention. That how can we improve your memory function? And, how can we educate people about certain esports that are actually good for your memory function? And if you go back in time, chess, everyone recognizes chess as being a great game. And I do have funny conversations with parents where they go, my son is playing 3 hours a night esports. It's terrible. And, it's so monotonous and boring. And I go, first of all, what is the game that he's playing? And they don't know, which really upsets me, because as a parent, you should get more engaged. And then I go, but you're playing other humans. You're trying to beat another human. You're trying to outstretch another human. And I say, look, if your son was playing 3 hours a night of chess against another human, would you be having the same view as you got now? And the majority don't. They just don't understand enough. And we as an industry can do a better job promoting the values of esports, as I say, in moderation and part of your balanced life.
So we talked about wellness, a little bit about culture, but the third part of the commission is education. And I was fascinated where you said the other day, in the UK at least, esports is now on the curriculum.
Yeah.
Sorry, my Latin's terrible.
Yeah, I gave up Latin at 30. Ameris and Matt, that's it. Yeah, so what we've been working with Pearson, who are a global education provider, and they own the qualification of BTEC, which has been around a number of years or decades, as I found out speaking to you, Jasper, which was good. So we created 3 levels of BTEC esports, going to the industry and working with them. And amongst my team, I've got 2 STEM teachers that have really tried to drill out the best. So this isn't about learning at school to be a better physical gamer. This is about learning about the transferable skills that you can do when you study esports, that like you can study other courses. So, around marketing, around business plan, about creating, content. So in the UK, from the age of 16, you could actually study full-time esports at school, at BTEC level. And then there's different levels, or the amount of quantities of BTEC. There's also a level 2. And then in the UK, there's 5 universities where you can study full-time esports, or esports with marketing, or esports with business, or esports production. And we've just written 7 esports courses, which are going to start being used in the UK and then globally. And then our BTEC in the UK, which, as I said, was government approved, we've literally launched, or launching this week, that it will be we are creating an international version. And what we're doing is we're not arrogant enough to say, look, what we've created in the UK is perfect for elsewhere. So we're working with different esports federations, Mexico, Philippines, to start with, to say, look, 80% of what we've got is transferable, but we need local content. We need to know about the local Mexican esports heroes, or the Philippine esports heroes, or what you guys are doing. So with Pearson, we're going into each country and introducing it, and then localized content. So if I'm a Mexican boy studying esports BTEC in school, it's about my Mexican hero, not about a UK esports player. So again, this is early days. I think we're obviously the BTEC is the first in the world. We've got some pretty good focused on the Middle East. I must say, Singapore does a great job. Your Singapore Esports Association that helped set up the Global Esports Federation, I'd say, are similar to us, and they're forward thinking about education of esports and courses. So I'd say we're kind of on the same level. We've just kind of formalized it with a global academic education partner at the moment. But yeah, we're excited, and I know one of the questions you're going to ask me later. I'm going to refer back to education. So when we get there.
So and by the way, I was supposed to ask everyone in World Wide Web land if they want to ask you any questions, to put them in the little chat box down there. Yes, and I will hopefully get them. We've had a question actually from one of our production team, Chester. This is from Johnny. At what point can a parent acknowledge that their child has the potential to move to making money and get a career from gaming and esports?
Yeah, it's a good debate. I mean, I think, as a parent, and I'm 49, I understand and know about different genres of music. So I know of hip hop, classic, rap, classical. It doesn't mean I listen to it. It just means I understand it. With most parents, if you say, what's an NBA, what's a MOBA, what's an FPS, what's a battle royale, they have no idea. I think there is a digital disconnect at the moment. I think there's a generation of people, unless you're a gamer, you don't understand what your kids are doing. And I think what's interesting is articulating the difference between being a streamer and being a pro gamer. You can have a Twitch channel and be a streamer and get money from being donated to that. Whereas a pro gamer, you're winning physical cash money. So as a parent, if your son comes up to you and goes, I've just won $2,000 playing in a Fortnite tournament, or I've just won, our Royal Ravens team just came 4th in the world in Call of Duty League. They just won $450,000. The winning team won $1.5 million. I think any parent would pick up for that. We're working with an amazing pair of twin boys, and one of the boys is actually missing one of his arm, and he's got a stump. And those two are they're 12 years old. They're probably top 1%, which isn't huge in Fortnite, but they're going to be developing, and they're going to start winning cash. So, there's a difference between winning cash and having a career on it. So I think for most parents, what is a large amount? In the UK, we had last year a 15-year-old boy called Wolfies, who's a really, he's an A student, a real poster child of esports. He came second in an esports tournament in duos in Fortnite in New York. He won $1.1 million. And the mother was interviewed, and she said, I used to say, him playing on his Xbox was, a total waste of time. And the son bought the house that they're living in for their mum, right? So I think, if your son wins $1 million or your daughter wins $1 million, I think you're going to take notice. But my encouragement to parents is just, why don't you try and play with them and understand? It's very easy to understand where your child ranks in the world, because most games have a ranking system, and this is the difference between esports and sports. Whereas if you think, oh, my son could become the next Andy Murray or the Roger Federer, or my son could be the next Messi, it's very subjective. Whereas in esports, it's very clear to see how good anyone is with global rankings. So in answer to your question, Johnny, it's what is a parent's threshold of what's a lot of money, but also it's about the parent actually engaging on it. And sometimes it's not all about the money.
Clearly, I should get my daughter into gaming. Let's move away a little bit from the association stuff you do. I mean, amazing, the time has gone so fast. Let's talk a little bit about you, and just a couple of questions about you and who is Chester King. Through this COVID period, I mean, esports has gone through this monumental growth, or continued its monumental growth. Is there anything that you've learnt through the COVID period? I mean, I've been asking people, is there anything they'd have done differently with the gift of hindsight? But is there anything you've learnt through the last 10 months due to the whole COVID situation?
Yeah, we haven't gone much into it, but I'm also involved in sport. So I'm involved in golf. And it's been interesting that golf has kind of proven itself to be a fantastic activity, and especially in the UK, and tennis was one of those things. With regard to esports, we've never been busier. It's been flat out, and I gave a lot of my team, told them to take time off in August. I think it's this understanding of people accepting that sport is a great activity, and esports is becoming a better activity because you can still be social and you can still be competitive. And I think the acceptance of that has been a huge change. And what I learned in COVID is, especially with Zoom calls, don't have an hour Zoom call if you can get it done in half an hour. When you're on a Zoom call, you need to do some health. Stand up, move around, look outside the window. Because people, you can get obsessed with just staring at cameras all the time. So I think learning and promoting the values that you've got is important. I know it sounds awful, but I've really enjoyed COVID. I've spent more time with my family. I haven't had to travel so much, but I think we've been much more productive on that. But I realize people have missed out on physical stuff. So we're actually opening in January. We're going to be opening a physical base in Olympic Park in London, which will be the first esports hub. And I think there are a lot of people, this is the problem about work experience and apprenticeships. They need a physical home to do it. We can't invite people into my home to do an apprenticeship or to do work experience. It would be a bit challenging. So summary, I've had a great COVID. So
I think my learning from this conversation is if you're going to get Chester King on stage, give him an hour, not 30 minutes. It's the other way around. Yeah. So we've got a minute left. I'm going to ask you the question I like asking everyone, and that's, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self? You're in a restaurant with your younger self. What advice would you give to him?
This is actually, since we spoke, I've been thinking about this so much. So I've been very fortunate in life. I've been healthy, had good family, worked hard, etc. It's all around education. I regret not probably doing a better focused degree. I did biomechanics and marketing, which is great, but I would love to have done a PhD. I would have loved to have enhanced my self-knowledge, and then just be a bit more about environment at a younger age. I think what the influence we have now, I wish I'd had that influence 34 years ago around the environment. So
Well, Chester, like I said, I wish we had an hour to talk to you, and I'll take full responsibility for that. But I'm delighted that we finally managed to get you to All That Matters. Hopefully, this time next year in Singapore, we'll see you live on stage and hopefully in a bar. But I've written some notes, and what I've got out of this is really education matters, health, wellness, nutrition matters. That more people should be engaging with esports if they can. The gamers are genuine athletes. I can't read that. I can't, and stay at school and do a PhD. But Chester King, thank you so much for joining us at All That Matters this year. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Stay safe. Cheers, Jasper. Thanks.